On a cold December night in 1991, a quiet yogurt shop in Austin, Texas, became the scene of one of the most horrifying crimes in the city's history. 4 teenage girls were brutally murdered, their bodies left in the burned remains of the shop. What followed was a decades-long investigation filled with false confessions, controversial arrests, and critical missteps that left more questions than answers. Even after convictions, shocking new evidence would change everything. This is the story of the yogurt shop murders. Hello, friends. My name is Marcia, and this is Midwest Murders. In 1991, Austin, Texas was a rapidly growing city in the midst of transformation. Known for its vibrant music scene, laid-back culture, and the presence of the University of Texas, it was still a relatively safe and community-oriented place compared to other major Texas cities. However, Austin was also beginning to experience the growing pains of a city on the rise, shifting from being a mid-sized college town into a larger metropolitan area. With a population of just over 500,000, it was experiencing an economic and population boom, fueled by the tech industry's early expansion into what would later become known as Silicon Hills. Companies like IBM and Motorola were already established, and Dell Computers, founded just a few years earlier, was quickly growing. While Austin wasn't known for high crime rates in the early 90s, the city was not immune to violent crime. However, it was not something residents expected to see often, especially in well-frequented shopping centers or family-friendly businesses. It was against this backdrop that 4 teenage girls would be closing up a neighborhood yogurt shop after their Friday night shift. Jennifer Ann Harbison, 17, was a senior at Lanier High School. She was president of the school's FFA chapter and was on the varsity track team. She had worked as a counter helper at the yogurt shop for about 6 months. Eliza Thomas, also 17, was also a Lanier High School senior active in FFA. She was involved in the agricultural mechanics program and excelled in welding and small engine repair. She was a shift leader and had worked at the store for about a year. Also in the store that evening was Jennifer's 15-year-old sister Sarah Louise Harbison, a Lanier High School freshman. Sarah was a junior varsity cheerleader and a member of the freshman basketball and volleyball teams, a member of the FFA, and student council representative. With Sarah that night was her best friend, Burnett Middle School 8th grader Amy Ayers, age 13. On Friday, December 6, 1991, Jennifer and Eliza were finishing up their shift at the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop located at 2949 West Anderson Lane. The shop, which closed at 11 p.m. on Friday evenings, was situated in the small hillside shopping center with 12 other small businesses. It was a comfortable, quiet spot that attracted a neighborhood crowd. Sarah and Amy had been at the nearby North Cross Mall and had stopped by the shop to get a ride home and help close up the store. At 11:47 p.m., Troy Gay, an Austin police officer on routine patrol in the area, noticed flames coming from the shop and called for assistance. Firefighters responding to the 2-alarm blaze found the back door unlocked. It appeared the fire started in the kitchen area and it was extinguished quickly. While there wasn't a lot of fire damage, other businesses in the shopping center suffered smoke damage due to a central ceiling ventilation system that ran the length of the shopping center. After firefighters extinguished the blaze, they made a heartbreaking discovery. The remains of Eliza, Sarah, and Jennifer were found together, each bound and tragically burned by the fire. Each had been shot in the back of the head with a .22 caliber firearm. Amy was found a short distance away, also bound but less severely burned. Unlike the others, she had been shot twice, once with a .22 caliber and once with a .380 caliber firearm. Investigators determined that all 4 girls likely died before the fire was set, which appeared to have been an attempt to destroy evidence. There were no signs of forced entry, and only a single shell casing was recovered from the scene. Initially, police theorized that the crime was motivated by robbery, but when little cash was found, the perpetrators forced the girls to remove their clothing before restraining them. Evidence suggested that Amy may have attempted to escape, which resulted in her being shot a second time and strangled. Investigators also believe the victims had been sexually assaulted. For reasons never made public, police stated that more than one perpetrator was involved. A $25,000 reward for information was offered by the shop's owner. More than 1,500 people attended the funeral mass for the girls, which was held at the St. Louis Catholic Church, with more than 500 standing on the lawn, unable to get inside. The funeral procession, following 4 hearses carrying identical white coffins, stretched for 5 miles. All were laid to rest in the Capitol Memorial Gardens. This case was troubled from the very beginning, with a compromised crime scene, bungled interviews, and legal missteps. Dozens of individuals falsely confessed to the crime, including 2 Mexican nationals, but none of these confessions were ever deemed credible. Police also reviewed the similarities between this crime and the Las Cruces bowling alley murders. I covered that case in a previous video and linked it below. 8 days after the murders, police arrested Maurice Pierce, who was 16, for unlawfully carrying a firearm into the North Cross Mall. During his interrogation, Pierce told police he had lent the gun to Forrest Welburn, age 15, who allegedly used it in the murders, and Pierce further implicated both Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen, who were both 17. All 4 boys were interviewed. However, after administering a polygraph test, police dismissed Pierce's claims, concluding he'd made the whole story up. All 4 boys were released. 8 years after the murders, in October 1999, authorities charged those same 4 men with capital murder. Maurice Pierce, now 24, Forrest Welburn, 23, Robert Springsteen, 24, and Michael Scott, 25. The case against them was largely built on confessions obtained in September of '99 from Scott and Springsteen, who now implicated Pierce and Welburn. Prosecutors later admitted they pursued the charges against the men in hopes of uncovering additional evidence to use at trial. After 2 grand juries failed to indict him, charges against Welburn were dropped. Springsteen and Scott proceeded to trial. Defense attorneys claimed the cases against their clients were riddled with troubling inconsistency and misconduct. Among other things, an investigator had determined before the arrest that Pierce's gun was likely not used in the murders. In the interrogation video, an officer is seen holding a gun to Scott's head, a moment his lawyer cited as clear coercion, and Austin Fire Inspector Melvin Stahl originally concluded that the fire started on a row of shelves about 3 feet above the victims. However, he changed his findings before trial to align with Scott's confession. The jury appeared to struggle with Scott's case, deliberating for 22 hours before convicting him of shooting and strangling Amy. He was sentenced to life in prison. Springsteen received the death penalty in 2001. There was no physical evidence tying either man to the crime, only their confessions, which both men recanted and said were coerced. In June 2009, DNA evidence exonerated both men. A single unknown male DNA was found on Amy and Jennifer, while a second unknown male's DNA was identified on Sarah, and a third unknown male's DNA was present on Eliza. In October 2009, all charges against Springsteen and Scott were dismissed. Maurice Pierce, who had spent 3 years in jail awaiting trial, also had his charges dropped due to insufficient evidence. Whether the men convicted and ultimately released in this case are the result of a botched investigation, or whether the actual killers have never been identified, the result is the same. Parents who have no real answers to what happened to their children that fateful night. That's a pain most of us can't begin to imagine. We pray that someday these families and their community will know the truth. If you have any thoughts, theories, or comments about this case, please leave them in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and may the truth reveal itself in the shadows.